It's time for another review video. So, first up, we encounter the strange anglerfish. And the anglerfish is a fish that goes fishing. It does this with glowing bacteria at its tip. Some of you may remember from the movie Finding Nemo where they're down in the dark and they see a light and they swim towards the light, and then there's teeth. Well, that's this fish. Unfortunately, the fish is much, much, much smaller. They kind of exaggerated it for the movie. 5 to 6 centimeters, 2 inches. They can swallow food twice their size, so they can totally unhinge their jaw and their stomach stretches. And the males, they're super weird. You have to watch the video to see how the males are kind of weird. They're much smaller than the ladies, but that's not the weird part. So we get into the book. And biotic and abiotic mean living and non-living. So the living thing that gets changed is when the gar, the skinny fish, gets eaten by the alligator. And getting eaten is a big change. The non-living could have been two things. So abiotically, gators dig holes when it's too hot to make the water a little deeper so they can stay cool. When they abandon those holes, then other fish can use them as hiding places. They also build giant nest mounds that can be 6 feet across and several feet above the water level, which is important because many plants can't grow in the completely soggy ground in the Everglades. So these nest mounds are above that, and small trees can grow where they otherwise couldn't, and then provides home for many other things. So the alligator isn't intending to help anything, but it does just by doing what it naturally does. For the human population graph, you had to graph those points. 7 billion wasn't in your book, so I added that. And then we hit that in 2011. 8 billion is projected at like 2023 or 2026. People aren't quite sure, so that's the green dot. Our population can't keep growing this way, sort of. It's sped up. It's definitely sped up. That's what the curve means when the curve, starts angling up. So this is growing, but not speeding up. A curve means it's speeding up. Curving this way would mean it would be slowing down. And actually, it might be slowing down. We don't know if our population can keep growing this way for a couple things. One, how many people are on the planet and how many we can fit safely depends largely on how much stuff we need. So if everybody wanted to live like super rich Americans, we already have too many people. If people can need less things and consume less food, resources, and all that, we could probably fit 30 million, especially if we all went vegetarian. Meat, we'll get to that later, is quite a resource waster. Delicious, but resource waster. So the future, what could it be? Well, we're not quite sure. So currently, in 2020, we're at like 7.8 billion, and nobody really knows where we're going to go, but we do know that our fastest growth was in the late 70s. We have actually slowed down. We're still growing, but we've started to make that curve back down. How quickly we make that curve is really what's important. And so we're probably not going to hit the green line. The green line, we've probably already missed a chance. We're already a little bit over that projection. Hopefully the middle line, the yellow line, where we peak out around 9 or 10 billion, that's where most people think we're going to go. Definitely hoping not the red line. The red line would be a big scary scenario. Barring space exploration where we have new planets to live, we're just stuck on this one planet, and growing up to 14 or 15 billion could have fun consequences. So in the salt marsh, population is just a group of 2 or more individuals of the same species in the same area. So we can't do the marsh crab and the hermit crab because they're different species. The juvenile shrimp are in a group, the seagulls are in a group, the heron and the egret are alone. Now, in reality, in a salt marsh, there would be groups of these things. We can think about the classroom as well. Goldfish, there are many goldfish or guppies in the classroom. They're in a population. But LaFonda and Crush are not because they're different species and there's only one of them each. So populations are groups, and there has to be at least 2 to be a group. So not everything in the picture was in a population. Now, ecologists study ecosystem, which is the whole living community of life, and the non-living, the abiotic things that affect it. So nutrients are not alive, but they definitely affect life. And they drain into the water from rivers and streams. Now, if you over-fertilize and then have flooding, that drains down. And in our area, our water drains into the Chesapeake Bay. So even though it's really far away, what we do locally affects how many nutrients end up in the bay. Too many nutrients can cause microbes to grow very quickly and use up all the oxygen in the water and literally have fish die-offs. And so we do have to be careful what we put on our fields and our lawns, because that can over-fertilize everything downstream of us. Water is critical to life. That's what the Amoeba Sisters video went over. And one of its interesting traits is when it freezes, water gets bigger and lighter, which is not normal. Most things, as they solidify, get denser and closer together and sink. So solid metal sinks in molten metal, but solid water, ice, floats. And that's really critical. And so water and how it behaves really dictates a lot about life. In the video, the Amoeba Sisters went over the biological levels of organization. What we had known before: cells in groups make tissues, tissues in groups make organs, organs in groups make organ systems, and all the organ systems make an organism. Taking that further, those organisms, if they're in groups of the same species, make a population. All the populations in an area make up the community of life. The community of life and its non-living parts make up the ecosystem, and all the ecosystems together make up the biomes, and then we end up with a biosphere, the big round thing of life. So that was in the book. I kind of glossed over it in the questions. We would normally take notes, but this video did a pretty good job. So where are we headed? Today, hopefully, you're going to do section 2. It's all about how energy travels through a system, and that's what connects us. So that can be food chains, which are really simple, or, sorry for my graphics, food webs, which has nothing to do with spider webs, but it's a good idea of how to describe it. So I hope this makes sense. If you have questions, email me. So again, today is a book working day, but you don't need the book because it's in the slides. And then tomorrow, you have an article to read and a science word. And we all love a science word. Have a good day.